take it for a game. Once you've had it, you're in an awful fix. 'Cause after you've had it, you never wanna quit. A lot of people, they don't understand. They think loving is money in their hand. But your sweet loving is better than a kiss. But when you leave me, those kisses I will miss. Take it for a game. Once you've had it, you're in an awful fix. 'Cause after you've had it, you never wanna quit. A lot of people, they don't understand. They think loving, is money in their hand. But your sweet loving, is better than a kiss. When you leave me, those kisses I will miss. When you leave me, those kisses I will miss. Those kisses I will miss. Those kisses I will miss. Those kisses I will miss.
There ain't no man can't save me. There ain't no man can enslave me. Ain't no man, a man that can change the shape my soul is in. There ain't nobody here who can cause me pain, erase my fear, 'cause I got only love to share. If you're looking for truth, I'm proof, you'll find it there. You got to serve something, ain't that right? I know it gets dark, but there's always a light. You don't have to buy in to get into the club. Trade your worries. You gotta show up if you wanna be seen. If it matters to you, ma, it matters to me. I'm gonna fall hard, yeah, I know I am. When the clowns crack up, I laugh with them. There ain't no man can't save me. There ain't no man can enslave me. Ain't no man, a man that can change the shape my soul is in. There ain't nobody here who can cause me pain, erase my fear, 'cause I got only love to share. If you're looking for truth, I'm proof, you'll find it there. You say you look funny, I say you're a star. I say you're whatever you think you are. Watching naysayers fall right in line. If we believe it, they'll say, she is so pretty, he is so fine. There ain't no man can't save me.
Well, I said it before, and I'll say it again, except for now we've got a bunch of people from the community out here. Welcome to the 35th Summer Fishtrap Gathering of Writers. Yeah. It's got a big, exciting week. I hope everyone had a good first session. I want you to know that there are several people from the community, and each night people from the Wallowa County and greater community will come for these free evening readings. You'll get to know a few of them in just a second. Tonight we have the big show is our executive director, Shannon McNerney, is going to talk about our theme this year, which is renewal. Each year, Summer Fishtrap takes on a theme that's important to people of the West. To spark conversations, build connections, do that sort of thing. That's what Fishtrap is all about. Our mission is to promote clear thinking and good writing in and about the West. Let's talk about what clear thinking is. Let's talk about what good writing is. What is the West? These are questions we want to talk about all the time, right? And those answers to those questions change over time, right? So Shannon's going to get up and talk for a little while. Then we're going to have our first in a series of evening readings from Summer Fishtraps. We call them the faculty, the teachers, the writers, the authors who are leading these morning writing workshops. Tonight, year-long writers workshop instructor Sharma Shields, who's who's been teaching the year-long writers workshop that has gone over the last year, and she was also here in 2019 as a workshop instructor. Was that the first one that you did?
I think this is my
Fourth? Yeah. And Tim Z. Hernandez, who was last year in 2018 and gave one of the most memorable readings that I can remember, so I'm looking forward to hearing Tim. And you can get to know them all after the readings are over. The book loft is here at the lodge, and the authors will be in there to talk to you about the book, the things that they've written, to sign books, and to visit for a while, so do that. We'll do this the first night because it's important. I want to just mention all of the community sponsors who help make Summer Fishtrap possible. There are a lot of them, and it's real. Copper Creek Mercantile, Pier 303, M. Crow that you might have passed in Lostine on the way here, Ruby Peak Realty and Diane Daggett, Element. Hold on, let me put on my cheater so this works easier. Moonshine Glass Art, Terminal Gravity Brewing, which you might have had, and the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce. There are also a bunch of foundations that help Fishtrap throughout the year. We're a small shop. There are just 2 full-time employees and a few part-timers, and these foundation grants really help us make all of these programs at Fishtrap possible. The ones here are the Book Loft, Eastern Oregon University, who we partner on with Summer Fishtrap, the Herbert A. Templeton Foundation, the James F. and Marion Miller Foundation. This sounds like a PBS show, doesn't it? The Kinsman Foundation, Ronald W. Nato Foundation, the Oregon Arts Commission, Roundhouse Foundation, and the Silver Family Foundation. All those people, and it also wouldn't happen if it weren't for you in the Wallowa County community who sign up for Summer Fishtrap and come, because that's the most important part. Yeah, thanks. A couple quick notes as you're coming here whether you're registered for Summer Fishtrap and you're here all day or you're coming for the evening readings, there are a couple restrooms. There are two restroom locations. There are 2 in the lodge. And then we rented from Rand's a couple porta potties, and there's a hand washing station. They're right back there through the old growth ponderosas. As folks who are coming in and everybody here, you can buy a dinner if you'd like to. The bar is open from 5 till 8 or so. You can buy a dinner through Wallowa Lake Lodge up at the front desk. You can also bring in your own food and dine with everybody and visit with people. One thing you can't do is bring your own booze in. That's wine or beer. That's against OLCC rules. So bootleggers beware. So just keep that in mind. And I just want to quickly, for those who don't know, I just want to give a quick outline for the week. In the mornings, everyone has writing workshops, so generally 9 a.m. until noon. Then afterward, oops, I went the wrong way. Then afterwards, we have lunch from noon till about 2. There's some youth activities for the young people who are signed up for youth workshops. Then each day from 1:30 to 3, we have a special event with a partner organization from here in Wallowa County. We've reached out to several of the local nonprofits and said, hey, we'd like you to share what your mission is and what you do with the Wallowa County, with the Summer Fishtrap community. So every day at 1:30 tomorrow is the large tree walk with Wallawology. Did I say that correct? Of course. Dr. David Drexler will meet people here at 1:30, and he's going to give folks a tour of these beautiful old-growth trees, tell their story, and maybe learn some names for them. Maybe even Beth will be along and help tell a little bit about that. Then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have some sessions, craft talks with our Summer Fishtrap faculty. Tomorrow's with Ellen Waterston. We're going to learn a little bit about editing, and she encourages everyone to maybe bring a piece, to bring a poem, or to bring a few paragraphs of work. Isn't that right, Ellen? Yep. See how many we can get through, huh? And so that's at 3 o'clock, and then every afternoon at 4 o'clock is the open mic. I hope you're generating new work right away and want to share. Try some stuff out. Don't be afraid. Be fearless. Every morning at 8:30 a.m., 8:30 a.m., there's a sign-up sheet at the check-in desk. It's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. There are 10 slots, up to 5 minutes, so maybe practice so as many people can get a chance as possible. And I hope you all take a chance, or as many as you do, to read at the open mic. Then, like I said, each evening is the featured faculty. So we'll get going with this tonight. I do want to, this afternoon, or a day before Summer Fishtrap, we, the past couple of years, have been doing and really working diligently on the history and people of Wallowa County. Ever since the beginning of Fishtrap, with Rich Wanschneider, Kim Stafford, and Alvin Josephi Jr., we've been talking about the story that this is the land of the Nez Perce, Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce people, and been working on land acknowledgments. And Beth and Shannon and I sat down today and we'll talk, well, a land acknowledgement without action really doesn't mean much. So we came up with, Beth Piato came up with, a super fun activity for us all to do all week. So I'm going to say that the Wallowas are the homeland of the Nimipu, the Nez Perce people. And with that, please welcome Beth Piato.
Tats kalawa oekaloma. Tats et paisa, it's good that you came. Good evening. So, an action that every single one of us can do that is about restoring and respecting Nimipu lands is to speak Nimipu Timtki. So I'm going to teach you a word a day so that you can speak to the land in the language of the land. This is our land's language, and it wants to hear its language. So you can participate in the restoration, in the renewal, in the bringing sound, the most renewable vibration we can bring to a place, bring new energy through sound. So every day I'll give you a word of the day, and you can be part of restoring the sonic ecology of our homelands. So, little trick, the first word of the day is 2 words. First word, tots. Tots. Good. You just said the word good. Tots. Okay. Tots may we. Tots may we. Okay, you just said good morning. May we is morning. So tomorrow morning, when you get out and start walking around these beautiful grounds, you can say tots may we to the land, to the earth, to the trees, to the sky. You can say it to each other. So tots may we oi kaloma. Okay. I
challenge you all to write, just write it down, and in the morning get up and say, Tuts may we crow, tuts may we little flowers. It'll make you feel better. All right. Okay, I'm going to bring up our first person here tonight. Shannon McNerney has been with Fishtrap since 2015 and has really taken Fishtrap through some wavy seas. I'm really proud of her. She's really brought Fishtrap through not only the pandemic, but all these things. I get to do the fun stuff. I get to spend the money. She has to bring it in. So there's last year our theme was resilience, and this year is renewal. And so please welcome Shannon McNerney, Fishtrap's Executive Director.
Wow, there's people here again. Hello. Well, now it's official. I finally get to stand here behind this podium that we all love, in this place, in front of so many friends, and finally say welcome to the 35th Annual Summer Fishtrap Gathering of Writers. We did it. We're here, and I want to say, there are no words for how much this means to me and to all of us at Fishtrap, but that kind of sounds like it could be a writing prompt. So how about this? I'm so happy to see your faces. And to those of you that are joining us online, assuming we'll get this working today, this is new hybrid technology. I'm just as pleased to welcome all of you as well. This is the very first hybrid summer Fishtrap gathering of writers. Not all of you know this, but we're actually offering a virtual writing workshop, and those folks will be tuning in with us throughout the week, and they are part of you. Not only are we able to live stream tonight's event, and indeed all of the free public events this year, we're also building on what we've learned over the past 3 years to offer a virtual-only summer Fishtrap writing workshop. This is making this gathering the most widely accessible yet. And this year we also made that workshop a pay what you can workshop so that we can make this as affordable for people as possible. And that was because of those of you who said yes to us over the pandemic. So thank you. Give yourselves a hand. So as Mike said, my job tonight is to set the stage, no pressure, for this week's of writing, to give you a little nudge. And even if you're joining us for this week as a lover of good writing and you're not taking a workshop and you're a lover of good writing and storytelling, I can hope you can take away a little bit of inspiration too. So in other words, I'm the opening act for a group of headliners. But before I issue my annual assignment to each of you, and there will be a test, I'd like to acknowledge some folks who make this week possible. So I'm going to ask some folks to raise their hands or stand up and wave really loudly. First off, the Summer Fishtrap staff, whom most of you have met. These are rock star people, and I get to work with all of them. So that's Mike, Jennifer, Janice, Hunter, and Shannon Maslak. Guys, if you could just wave your hands and get, yeah. I also have a remarkable board whom I'm going to ask to stand right now. If you're here as a member of the Fishtrap Board of Directors, if you could stand, please. There's one, there's two, there's a few of them out here. Thank you. I also want to make a special acknowledgement that one of our board members is not able to be with us here. Judy Wanschneider has been dealing with some serious health issues, but she's back in the county, and I just kind of have a strange feeling that she's sending us good wishes, and we could send them all back, and I'm hoping she's going to get to see this tonight as well. So thank you, Judy. Guys, we have the best faculty in the world, and we could not do this with all of them. And so many of them, as you heard earlier, committed to sticking with us through virtual-only workshops. It's like, I'm doing this because I want to come to the lake. Oh, no, I'm sitting in my living room again. So I want to thank the Fishtrap faculty for coming again and staying with us and teaching a remarkable week of workshops. So thank you. So as promised, I'd like to talk a little bit about this year's theme and be prepared to go on a little journey with me. So I'm going to provide you with a peek behind the scenes about how we actually pick the theme. It's something we start talking about sometimes up to 18 months in advance of summer Fishtrap. And it's a process. We brainstorm words, we bounce ideas off each other with our past faculty, we have a program committee, we talk to them, we look at past themes for inspiration, and after 35 years we look at past themes to make sure we aren't repeating ourselves. We come up with feeling words, and then we rate the thesaurus. We play around with alliteration, or I should probably say I play around with alliteration until eyeball daggers start pinning me to the wall. We mull and chew and fret until somehow a theme just jumps out, and there it is, and you can see the sparkles. Okay, so another thing to know is that despite appearances and sparkles, we don't actually have a crystal ball, and when we finally settle on the theme, it feels like it. In the summer of 2019, so this would have been about June, we settled on the theme of courage for 2020. I'm going to pause and let you chew on that for a minute. In 2020, we picked resilience for 2021. Then in the summer of 2021, the word renewal started to kind of pop out. Well, it jumped out, and then it disappeared, and then it waved at us from a corner of the room, and then it came back to us, and then finally it sort of just felt right. So here's the official definition for all you many word nerds, you are my people. Renewal, an instance of resuming an activity or state after an interruption. Inspiring stuff, isn't it? Yeah, the Webster. That definition did not, in and of itself, as you can tell, provide a lot of inspiration, but we didn't turn to Merriam or Webster when we picked the word. And if we had, I'm not sure that we'd have stuck with it. But looking back on it now, I'm starting to think that maybe, just maybe, the word picked us. Words are powerful things. They have magic. They make promises. That being said, I will admit that Renewal and I have gone around the block a few times. I've sometimes questioned its commitment, and it in turn has challenged my understanding. Renewal is an ambiguous word. It's both stark and it's light. It's a noun that feels like a verb. It can feel bureaucratic and spiritual. It's both present and it's future, and it's full of hope and sometimes feels unattainable. An instance of resuming an activity or state after an interruption. So doing what I do, I turn to poets to see if they could act as an interpreter for me. So over 2,000 years ago, Ovid, yes, I went that far back, spoke about renewal this way in Metamorphoses. Nothing retains its original form but nature, the goddess of all renewal, keeps altering one shape into another. Nothing at all in the world can perish. You have to believe me. Things merely vary and change their appearance. What we call birth is merely becoming a different entity, and what we call death is ceasing to be the same. Though the parts may possibly shift their position from here to there, the wholeness in nature is constant. 2,000 years later, and nature was again the source of renewal for Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist poet and teacher whom we just lost earlier this year. Be the monarch of your life and sign the decree to exile suffering and call back from all points of the universe the power of birds and flowers, the vitality of youth. The whole universe will smile when your eyes smile. I keep coming back to that definition. An instance of resuming an activity or state after an interruption. So what are we resuming? What was interrupted? What do we want to resume here this week as we come back together after 3 years? And what have we lost? What have we learned? Coming together, being present in this world, giving yourself the space and the permission to heal. Maybe that's the work of this week for you. But that's what you're here to find out for yourself. Here's what I think. Renewal is never one thing. Something has always been interrupted. Sometimes it's something small, a line of thought, a conversation, a meal. Sometimes it's not small at all. A relationship, a career, a life. I think uncertainty sits at the center of the space in between interruption and resumption. When will things resume? What will it look like when they do? Will anything ever be the same? I remember earlier in the pandemic thinking about another powerful word. Remember this? Normal? Returning to normal. What was normal? When was normal? How would we know? According to my good friends Merriam and Webster, normal is typical. Normal is expected. That doesn't seem like a real thing anymore. But then again, was there ever a time in my life where I would stamp my foot and say, now, this is normal? So, back to uncertainty for a minute. Can I be honest with you? I struggle these days when people ask me how I am. I'm not okay. I mean, I'm fine. I'm healthy, I'm here, my family and friends are safe, I have a job I love, doing meaningful work with people I care about, my beasties are still ridiculous, I have a roof over my head, a garden of growing things, and all the streaming services anyone could ever want. But I'm not okay. I'm restless, I can't concentrate like I used to be able to, I don't remember the last book I actually finished, I'm irritable, I handle the big things great. I'm doing pretty well there, but following a tourist, by the way, here's some advice. As they drive 35 miles an hour down Wallowa Lake Highway, I might just push me over the edge, and you. I'm always just a little bit anxious, like I'm forgetting something or I'm sad. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and suggest that most of you, if not all, are dealing with similar sensations. We're all tilted sideways. Remember that old V8 commercial? Some of you are too young to remember that, but that old V8 commercial where people walked around at a 45-degree angle and it was like, I should have had a V8. Kind of like that. I feel like we're all tilted. This life is tricky to navigate on the best of days, and these are not the best of days. These are days stuffed with uncertainty and very little resumption, a striving for normal, for predictable. And I think none of us are okay. And I think that it's okay to not be okay. For me, naming that seems to help. It's like I'm giving myself permission to feel what I'm feeling and set it down. Then I can look up and see you. And maybe together we can be a little more okay than we were. To renew ourselves through our connection with each other. All of this to say that no, this is not a therapy session. And yes, this is a good place to take whatever you're feeling, look at it, acknowledge it, hopefully write about it, and look around at the folks around you and start to rebuild, resume, and renew your writing life. Joy Harjo, our US Poet Laureate, wrote about times like these in her poem, Once the World Was Perfect. Once the world was perfect and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. We destroyed the world we had been given for inspiration, for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hands. There we were, right back where we started. We were bumping into each other in the dark, and now we had no place to live since we didn't know how to live with each other. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans, the children of those clans, their children and their children, all the way through time, to now, into this morning light, to you. Maybe that's our work together this week, to work together to make a ladder, to begin to bring this world back together again. And coming here to this place, working with the people around you who have also chosen to set aside a week for their craft, seems like a pretty good way to start. I read an Isabel Allende quote that I think applies to every one of us. We don't even know how strong we are until we are forced to bring that hidden strength forward. In times of tragedy, of war, of necessity, people do amazing things. The human capacities for survival and renewal is awesome. I'm going to repeat that last line. The human capacity for survival and renewal is awesome. So, here's my challenge for you this year. First, take this time in this place, or if you're joining us online, set some time to go outside and touch the ground. Look at the sky, breathe deeply, and know that your capacity for renewal is awesome. Second, be wary of powerful words. May I suggest you put should on a shelf this week? And maybe replace it with one or more of these. Will, can, try, create, yes, or no. And finally, I have one request. Will you join me and commit to creating a brave space for all of us to do this good work together? We're here to write and share stories and poems, yes, but also to take care of each other. So be kind, be brave, pay attention, listen, participate, take risks, make mistakes, learn, try something new. I often say to folks that working at Fishtrap is a damned privilege. I don't often say why, so here goes. It's a privilege to serve and work with people who care about art, creativity, story, and are infinitely curious, who create opportunities for empathy, who constantly strive to do better work, who show their courage through the very act of sitting their butts in a chair and putting a pen to a page or a cursor to a screen. And my favorite people just might be those folks who are here just to listen to your words, read your work, cheer you on. It's a privilege to get to interact with each of you. Plus, I get to do it here, in this place. Not too bad. That's our community together, folks. That's the activity we're resuming this week. It's not normal. It never was, but it's magical. So one more poem from our friend Rilke to send you on your way. May I strike my heart's keys clearly, and may none fail because of slack, uncertain, or fraying strings. May the tears that stream down my face make me more radiant. May my hidden weeping bloom. How we waste our afflictions. They're really our wintering foliage, our dark greens of meaning, one of the reasons of the clandestine year. Not only a season, their site, settlement, shelter, soil, abode. So now let's go get some writing done. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, this is a great week to be fearless, brave, with this safe space in this place. All right, well, here we go with our first faculty reading of 2022. Are you ready? Yeah. You set? Okay. Sharma Shields. Oh gosh, I love having Sharma around. Sharma is the author of a short story collection, Favorite Monster, and 2 novels, The Sasquatch Hunter's Almanac and The Cassandra. Sharma's short stories and essays have appeared all over the place. In the New York Times, Electric Lit, Catapult, Slice, Slate, Fairy Tale Review, Kenton Review, IO Review, Fugue, and a bunch of other places. And have garnered such prizes as the 2020 PNBA Award, the 2016 Washington State Book Award, the Autumn House Fiction Prize, the Tim McGinnis Award for Humor. She's received her BA in English Literature from the University of Washington and her MFA from the University of Montana. Sharma also runs a small press, Scavlin Books, and is a contributing editor for Moss. Sharma has worked in independent bookstores and public libraries throughout Washington State, and she brought her whole gosh darn family here for Summer Fishtrap Week. Both of her kids are in youth workshops, so that should be a blast. So you'll see them around. So please help me welcome Sharma Shields.
I am so excited to read to human beings for the first time in a really long time. Thank you to Shannon and Mike and the whole Fishtrap community. This is such a beautiful, special place, and I'm so moved to be here in person again, and to have us talking about the original language of this place, to think of the trees listening to us, which I think they always are, and we just aren't aware of it. I want to shout out my novelist cohort from the year. They are all absolutely incredible, and it's been amazing to read their work, and I'm just so honored to have been able to work with them. We're going to have such a fun wrapping up, which is hard to admit that it's going to be coming to an end this week. I work at a children's bookstore, and I'm a big fan of Janae's, so it's very cool that my kids get to be in her workshop. So this is just going to be such a great week for us all. And thank you to all the volunteers and everything as well. So I'm reading, and I want to say how excited I am to be reading before Tim performs, and I'm so glad I'm going first. Okay. So I'm going to be reading 2 short works of fiction, but I want to start out with a poem that is also dealing with the theme of a house, because all of this work I'm going to be reading talks about home a little bit. So this is from one of my favorite poets, Tracy K. Smith, who was also our nation's poet laureate for a couple of terms. So this is called Ash. Strange house we must keep and fill, house that eats and pleads and kills, house on legs, house on fire, house infested with desire, haunted house, lonely house, house of trick and suck and shrug, give it to me house, I need you baby house, house whose rooms are pooled with blood, house with hands, house of guilt, house that other houses built, house of lies and pride and bone, house afraid to be alone, house like an engine that churns and stalls, house with skin and hair for walls, house the seasons singe and douse, house that believes it is not a house. Does anybody know what she's writing about there? Can you tell? Us. Yes, our body. Isn't that cool? I love that poem. Okay. The ultimate house. Okay. So this is a very weird story I wrote about Elon Musk, or inspired by Elon Musk. I'm so glad you're laughing already. I was really worried no one would laugh. It's called Biography, and it's based on the phrase, well, you'll recognize the phrase because you're going to hear it about 500 times, so I apologize. Okay. The world's richest man buys a car. The world's richest man buys a space program. The world's richest man buys a construction company. The world's richest man sends the construction company's workers into the earth to dig tunnels. The workers descend into the dark like so many anglerfish, headlamps aglow. The world's richest man imagines them under the ground, laughing and happy in the murk, drilling and mining. He wonders if they have any water. He hopes that they do. The world's richest man buys a house. He gives it a name, Jonathan the house. Jonathan is a $20 million renovated barn in the middle of a remote plain. The world's richest man buys furniture. He buys arcade games. He buys a pool float in the shape of a large swan, Jonathan the swan. When the breeze picks up, Jonathan the swan sails gracefully from one side of the clean blue pool to the other, the most graceful pool float you've ever seen, although no one is there to see it. The world's richest man buys damask curtains so he can shut out the view. He sits in the large rooms of Jonathan the house. He meditates. He buys a yoga mat. He owns upwards of 2,000 candles. He leans toward nirvana, yearning, and sometimes has an epiphany or two which he soon, without judgment, forgets. The world's richest man buys tweezers. The world's richest man hates his eyebrows. The world's richest man invests in biotechnology. Change your genes, he thinks. Change your eyebrows. The world's richest man stares into a mirror in his master bathroom. There are mirrors everywhere. They reflect an infinity of the world's richest man. Seeing himself multiplied in this way accordions a sense of profundity. What is eternity, thinks the world's richest man. How does mortality inspire invention? How does creation cause harm? He ponders these questions until lunchtime. The world's richest man eats baked salmon. The world's richest man eats a fruit roll-up. The world's richest man eats a bell pepper. The world's richest man burps lightly into the back of his wrist, murmurs, "Excuse me," to an empty room. The world's richest man buys a cemetery. The world's richest man buys a casket. The world's richest man buys a mausoleum. He gives it a name, Jonathan. Jonathan the Mausoleum. It sits in the middle of a cemetery, empty. The world's richest man buys a cruise liner, buys a spaceship, buys an orphanage of children. He fills the cruise liner and the spaceship with the children and sends them off to enjoy adventures in the sea and the stars. Every now and again, he wonders where these children are, if they're happy, if they have any food. He wishes he could watch a movie with them or sing camp songs. Sometimes the world's richest man hates the very ground he walks on, ground he owns in myriad ways, but which continues to underwhelm him. He thinks of the tunnels. He wonders about the tunneling men. He envies the children the ability to blissfully float away from it all, above it all. He wonders if the children think of him when they're hurtling through the dark or when they're crashing through the slapping anvils of waves. He hopes that they do. The world's richest man buys a bank. The world's richest man meets with the military. The world's richest man builds war rockets. Where there is wealth, notes the world's richest man, there are weapons. An agreement is made, war rockets for all. They fly first to one country, then another. In the air at any moment, there are rockets filled with weapons, their potential vibrating like a song. The world's richest man forges an AI company. He falls in love with a robot named Allison. Allison the robot. He marries Allison in a lavish ceremony. They give birth to a litter of adorable robot babies, but he misplaces them somewhere near a frothing river. Allison wanders the halls of Jonathan the house, wringing her metal hands and calling for her children. One morning, the world's richest man comes home to find Allison floating, wet and perished, atop Jonathan the swan. He phones the construction company to remove her to Jonathan the mausoleum. The funeral is as lavish as the wedding, but the world's richest man isn't there. The world's richest man hikes to Machu Picchu. The world's richest man climbs Mount Everest. The world's richest man travels to Old Bagan in Myanmar. He takes a lot of selfies. He buys licorice. He buys Tibetan prayer flags. Nothing is sacred, he says. Nothing is eternal. He buys a Buddhist temple. When he returns, he learns that the cruise liner has sunk. The spaceship, the spaceship. What happened to the spaceship? The spaceship has exploded. For a few nights, he can't sleep thinking of those children. Did they know? Did they scream? He vows to never take a vacation again. The world's richest man works. The world's richest man talks. The world's richest man influences. Stocks rise and fall. Agencies investigate and acquit. The world quakes and burns from all of the tunneling, all of the owning, all of the invention. The world's richest man impatiently taps his fingers against his desk. The world's richest man buys a laptop, buys a rainforest, buys Paris, buys Austin. The world's richest man purchases a set of spoons and a tea set once used by the Dalai Lama. He buys a tiger. He buys a sloth. He misplaces them somewhere near a frothing river. He buys a horse and names her Jonathan, Jonathan the horse. He sells Jonathan the horse to the world's second richest man, a man who almost knows something about horses, and changes the horse's name to Sunbeam on the Valley. The world's richest man buys a dog. The dog sleeps at the foot of his bed. The world's richest man loves her. Allison, he names her. Allison the dog. The world's richest man pays no taxes. The world's richest man grows richer. The world's richest man says wealth is an illusion. It slips through the eye of existence like a thread, he argues, the same on the one side as it is on the other. The world's richest man sleepwalks. The world's richest man snores. The world's richest man awakens atop Jonathan the swan, drifting soundlessly across the swimming pool. The world's richest man stays like this for a long time, blinking up at the stars. He believes in the infinite again. The next morning, the world's richest man punctures Jonathan the Swan with the tweezers. She deflates into a large question mark in his hands. The world's richest man sells Jonathan the house. The world's richest man sells his car. The world's richest man donates his belongings. The world's richest man eats hot dogs. The world's richest man eats top ramen. The world's richest man packs up Allison the dog and moves into a hovel near the interstate. Each morning, he forces himself to meditate on a neighboring tent camp. Home is a mirage, the world's richest man murmurs. He tells himself it's the same on the one side as it is on the other. The world's richest man works. The world's richest man invents. The world's richest man imagines. The newspapers publish articles about him daily, all beginning with the phrase, the world's richest man. The war rockets fly and fall. In his Spartan hovel near the interstate, Jonathan the hovel, the world's richest man bends over his papers and devices. Allison the dog sleeps at his feet. The world's richest man is tireless. The noise of the ceaseless traffic through the open window is like an ocean, like a God eternal, like an entity not man-made. It is the music of contrivance, thinks the world's richest man, inspiring and ravenous. He remembers vaguely the tunneling workers, how they move beneath him like so many ants. Already he suspects their headlamps flicker and fade. He hopes they remember him fondly as the gloom tightens around them, as the tunnels begin to collapse. He hopes his name is on their lips. The end of that one. Thank you. Thank you. Believe it or not, that's all true about Elon Musk. Every part of it. No, just kidding. But I did research quite a lot, and it is true that he is now eating hot dogs and top ramen. That is true. But both of these stories I wrote for the Spokesman Review's Summer Stories project that they do every summer, where they publish local writers, and they ask them to do a story on a theme, and the theme is Home Sweet Home. And of course, I can't write anything actually very sweet to that theme. Everything comes out weird. So this is another one I wrote that should probably appear in the Spokesman this summer at some point. And right now I have just an Emily Dickinson quote for the title, A Fairer House Than Prose, and it's a little bit shorter, I think, than the last one. The witch buys a cottage in the remotest part of the forest, hoping to be left alone. She spent her long life ministering to the villagers, but they've turned on her anyway, mostly out of boredom, having stoned to death their previous scapegoat, the miller. Despite relying on her potions and spells for decades, and despite their previous gratitude for her reversal of their woes, an illness, a grief, an unwanted pregnancy, rumors spread about the witch's deviance and unholiness, her unnatural proclivities and devices. Though almost nothing startles the witch, the villagers' shift in tone disturbs her. The friendly faces hardened into knots of accusation and rage. She notes the way her neighbors refill their baskets with sharp stones. But the witch owes them nothing. She quietly shutters her house near the village, purchases the woodland cottage sight unseen, and moves away before the stones fall again. The first night in her new home goes poorly. The witch doubts her choices. Her rush to leave the village caused her to overlook the cottage's structural issues, the chicken legs in place of a solid foundation, the candy-coated exterior that melts into a sticky mess in the rain, the mushrooms popping up willy-nilly along the floorboards. It's the worst sleep of the witch's long life. Owls nesting in the chimney disgorge their impressive pellets throughout the night, the sound of retching followed by a firm thud. Frogs sing from the saturated mess of the sideboard, enchanted by some past sorcerer who was sick of washing dishes and decided to hell with it. Might as well turn this whole counter space into a swamp. A demon goat bleats its curses at her from the backyard, and when she makes feeble attempts to befriend him, he brandishes his mean horns. Moths thicken the air, bumping against the witch's eyelids as she struggles to sleep. The cottage is a caterwaul of noise and fecundity and life, devoid of the peace and solitude the witch so deeply desires. She phones the real estate agent the following morning, only to be told that there is no hope for her. The market, as we all know, is terrible. There is a tree well available to the south, the real estate agent suggests, but it has a muskrat problem. To the north is a dank cave, but she would have to share it with enchanted bats who tell nonstop knock-knock jokes. Perhaps, the real estate agent suggests, the witch would prefer to return to the village? No thanks, says the witch. The witch hangs up the phone, pulling a pillow over her head just as an owl hawks up a fresh pellet. It trips down the chimney and lands on the floor with a clatter. The room is so full of pellets now that when the witch rises to brew her tea, she floats on top of a carpet of fur and bones. Home ownership is the worst, the witch broods the whole next day. She mutters to no one, I hate this cottage. As if in response, the cottage abruptly rises on its chicken legs and begins to rambunctiously jog in place. The witch clutches the unlit stove for balance, but still manages to bash her head into the sideboard. All right, the witch bellows, you win, I surrender. There is nothing to do, she realizes, but make the best of it. The house, appeased, relaxes, tucking its chicken legs into a seated position. It purrs around her, the walls and floorboards vibrating. Humbled, the witch murmurs her gratitude. Over the next few weeks, the witch's industriousness returns. She decides to clean the entire house from top to bottom, but with care, so that even the smallest lives, the mouse, the mushroom, the moth, even the wayward earwig climbing on her old cauldron, are valued. The witch opens the windows and doors, sweeps out the mass of owl pellets, begins to appreciate, as she washes the floors, what a wealth of medicine, food, spells, and transport the house has gifted her. She can farm the mushrooms and herbs from its interior. In a rotting, leaf-strewn cabinet, the witch discovers silkworms, plump and white like mounds of snow. They provide her with thread. She boils the cocoons only after the silk moths hatch. The demon goat calms when she offers it sugar cubes molded from the cottage's exterior candy melt. Now she has milk and butter and cheese. The house itself is a moving vehicle, and she finds if she regains her manners and speaks to it lovingly, it will take her wherever she needs to go. Sometimes the witch thinks, I forget the bounty all around me. If I open up, some of what seems wretched becomes musical instead. Now the moths tremble against her eyelids and relax her into sleep. From the swamp of the sink, the frogs sing to her. The owl pellets land and the noise no longer irritates her, but encourages the philosophical. She considers the artifact, the life that is fed another life, our vitality versus what remains after the mortal breath scatters. The witch muses and dozes. She is lucky, she knows, to have such a home. She is lucky to have a home at all. Weeks pass in relative comfort. The witch relaxes into her new routines. If loneliness occurs to her, she brushes it away with the same lightness of touch she uses with the moths. If she remembers a friendly face back in the village, someone she might begin to miss, she quickly turns her thoughts to the work that needs to be done. Nonetheless, when a village girl of only 14 shows up at the creek bed as the witch fills a pail with cool, clear water, the witch's first response is an exclamation of complete joy. The girl is less cheerful, torn and shredded from her travels. She collapses with exhaustion at the witch's feet. When she recovers herself, the witch administering to her with hot broth and bites of a buttery frittata made from eggs the house has laid itself, she tells the witch horrible stories from the village. Without the witch there, the health of women and others have suffered. The town librarian has been stoned to death. The bookseller, attempting to give children books about all sorts of identities, beliefs, cultures, rots in a rat-infested prison. Even the humanities-loving school teacher has been banished, replaced by a raven who caws only math facts and mantras of church and state. Moreover, the girl herself is in a bad way and desperately needs the witch's help. Please, the girl says, for my future, help me. I hear you, the witch says, hushing the child. We'll take care of it shortly, but first you must rest. The witch nurses the child back to health. She prepares a strong potion, a quick and mostly painless concoction that will return the child's autonomy and future to herself. Grateful, the girl chooses to stay, helping the witch with the chores, reading dusty books that line a small bookshelf, cooing to the owls in the chimney, petting the frogs. The witch is firm with the girl, almost bossy, but there grows between them a dense swarm of affection. The witch, startled, realizes that she loves the girl as a daughter. She twirls this unexpected discovery through her mind one night, marveling at her great luck. Family is home, she sees now. Home is family. The girl lies on her pellet-filled mattress nearby, snoring blissfully. The witch, overcome with gratitude, weeps. But there is more, too. There is duty. There is work to be done. There is community, a community the witch, out of bitterness, has almost let herself forget. The house is a fortress, but it's also a vehicle. She sees now what she must do. There are others like the girl, trapped without choice. The witch puts her hand on the wall of her life-brimming cottage. She murmurs to it, travel. The cottage has been expecting this. It rises on its chicken legs, aims its firm shoulders at a pathway through the trees. It glides smoothly through the forest to attend to village after village, a traveling clinic. The demon goat trots along after them, snorting and bleating. The girl and the witch, engrossed in their work, forget again and again, or merely accept, that they are risking their very lives. The cottage bolsters them, filled with love, acceptance, health, and choice, as all good homes are. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharma. I'm going to ask again before we leave, does everybody remember how to say good morning? That's Maui. Repetition. We will after the next reading. Okay, here we go with our final reader for the first night here. I know that I want you all to get a good night's sleep so you're ready for your workshops tomorrow, and all of you folks from the community, thank you for being here. I hope you can come down every night. Our next reader is Tim Z. Hernandez. He is an award-winning author and performer. He's the recipient of the American Book Award, the Colorado Book Award, and the International Latino Book Award for Historical Fiction. Hernandez was named one of 16 New American Poets by the Poetry Society of America, and he has received accolades for his research on locating the victims of the 1948 plane wreck at Los Gatos Canyon, which is chronicled in his documentary novel, All They Will Call You, which you can buy after the readings this evening. I think we have them. It's a great book. Hernandez is an associate professor with the University of Texas, El Paso's bilingual MFA in creative writing. And today, Tim is being joined by a special guest, which I alluded to, which I hinted at this afternoon. He's joined for this reading, it's a multimedia extravaganza, by Ana Saldana. And Aldana is an LA-based indigenous artist, musician, and sound engineer for documentaries and films. We've got things to talk about. She's performed solo and with her band Life the Hunter for venues across North America and Mexico. She's currently working on a full-length album, and her music can be found on Spotify and iTunes. Please welcome Tim Hernandez and Ana Saldana.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just a little quick setup here. Cool. Thank you. Thank you all so much. It's an honor to be back at Fishtrap. I love this place. I love it so much. I came here in 2018 the first time, and I actually had my children with me, and I have beautiful memories. And so ever since that first experience, I was like, I hope they invite me back this year. Let's see. Okay, I hope they didn't. Okay, maybe next year. And then, okay, that's all right, you know. And then the next year they did, but then COVID happened. Oh, God, okay. Well, anyways, I'm grateful. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I appreciate it so much. And it's always nice, too, to see friends. My friend Aron Abeta, who is here, a wonderful poet from Colorado, my brother from Colorado. who I've missed and haven't seen in many years. And I used to live there, so we hung out quite a bit over there. And of course, my sister from Colorado, Laura Pritchett. Where's she? Where's Laura at? She's around here somewhere also. She's way in the back, yeah. So much love to you also, Laura. Yeah, it's just so nice to be here. Thank you. Thinking about renewal, I don't have to say much anymore because Shannon said it best in that beautiful welcoming. But, I was thinking a little bit about it and what that meant in terms of storytelling. And, to make new again, right? So I was thinking, okay, well, you owe some kind of, I think, there's the original thing, and then you make it new again, the thing, okay? So I thought, well, that's how stories kind of work also, right? We live an experience, we gather a story, we hear it from a friend, it exists once upon a time, and then later on we make it new again in text, in writing, right, on the page. And so I thought, well, when we do that, when we draw from the original, there's always a kind of karmic debt that we owe. There's always a permission that needs to be, asked or a permission received also. And so in thinking about that, I was actually remembering this story from 2015. As Mike mentioned, my book, All They Will Call You, which came out in 2017, is about a plane crash that happened in 1948. And I'll tell you just a little bit of background on that. So in 1948, the United States government was deporting 28 Mexicans from Oakland, California to the San Diego border. And there were 4 American crew members, pilot, co-pilot, stewardess, and the immigration officer, and then 28 Mexicans. And the plane crashed down in a place called Los Gatos Canyon, which is in Central California in Fresno County, where I'm originally from. And when it crashed there, killed everybody aboard, all 32 passengers. And the American crew members, their remains were sent back home as far back as Rochester, New York, from coast to coast. The remains of the Mexican passengers were pushed into a mass unmarked grave in California. It was the largest unmarked mass grave in California's history at that time. After that, families weren't informed. Nobody knew what happened to them. And in 2010, I came upon this information when I was still living there. And I ended up starting to try and find and locate the families of who those people were. First, their names, who they were, because there was no names on the headstone that they had. This little placard just said 28 Mexicans. So I began to search in 2010, and I'm still searching to this day. So far, I found 13 families, and the stories continue. But I wrote the first 7 families I found. I wrote in my book, All They Will Call You. And I'm going to read tonight from the second in the series called They Call You Back. And it's about the new families and about what it means in terms of what's happening today in this country. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from that. But just aside from that context, I thought of this story when in 2015, the first time I trekked out into Mexico, I went to central Mexico, into the state of Guanajuato. I had spent a few weeks there with one of the families, the first family I found, the Ramirez family, and the Perez family. And sitting there at the table, this was like I had been there in the whole community. It's a small little pueblito. They call it ranchito over there. Small little community in Guanajuato. And I spent, all this time there basically gathering stories, talking to the families, eating, breaking bread with them, learning who these passengers were, the 2 passengers who belonged to these families there, and they still own the home, the original home that one of the passengers was killed. One of the passengers who was killed, Guadalupe, they still had his original home there, in which he was actually born into, right? And so they showed me the home, and we had meals there, and so I spent so much time there. And on my last day there, I was spending the night at this gentleman, this elder in the community. His name is Don Miguel Perez, and he was a former bracero. Bracero was the work visa program they had back in the 1940s, and he knew the men personally. And every morning, actually, I would sit with Don Miguel, and we would have coffee and eat frijoles on a little plate that his daughter would make, and we'd eat beans, and we'd talk. And the beautiful thing about Don Miguel, and in fact, a lot of folks in that community, they're very humorous, and sometimes you don't know, their humor's so dry, sometimes you don't know if they're joking with you or if they're being serious, And so every morning I wouldn't know what to get. So Don Miguel would sit there and he would say, have you heard about this, and that? And he'd tell me in Spanish, have you heard about this story? And I would go, I wouldn't know how to gauge that. Like, is he joking with me? I'd say, no, and I'd kind of quietly lean back, and then he would tell me, and then he would laugh, and then I'd go, okay, he's joking. And on this particular morning, Don Miguel, it's my last morning in Mexico, and I'm getting ready to leave to board my plane that afternoon and fly back to El Paso. Oh no, back to I think I was living in Colorado at that time. And he goes, he looks at me and he says, we're quiet for a long time, and he's eating his beans and he's drinking his cafe, and he's, and he looks at me after a while and he goes, have they told you the story about the horse? I said, the horse? No. And I lean back because, you don't know if it's serious or what. So you lean back. No, the horse? Caballo raro. I said, the rare horse, the one that they found. It's a prehistoric horse. And I said, here? In Charco de Pantoja? This is the little community's name. He says, yes, the prehistoric horse. They haven't told you about that? He looks at me and he looks at his daughter. Her name's Dulce. And he looks over at me. They haven't told you about that? I said, no, Don Miguel, I haven't heard the story of the horse, So he tells me the story of the horse. He says, well, picks his teeth and he says, well, in the early 90s, 1990, por ahí, around there, he says, a farmer named Daniel Arredondo, one of the farmers, was walking down the street, the cobblestone street. This is right after a torrential rain that poured right through Charco de Pantoja, and it lifted up the cobblestones in the street. And he said, Don Miguel is walking, minding his own business, and he comes upon this giant, these stones were upturned, and he sees this giant hole in the ground. And Daniel looks inside the hole, and he goes, what is that? There's something inside the hole. And so he peeks a little closer, and it looks like a bone fragment or something. And he goes, oh, that looks like a horse's head. And so Daniel isn't sure. And so by then, some other campesinos, some other farmers come along, and he tells the other farmers, hey, take a peek in there. Tell me what that looks like. The other farmers look. Oh, yeah, that's a horse, un caballo. That's a horse. Yeah, but then one of the farmers says, but as they start to pull back rocks, he says, well, but the front legs look shorter than the back legs. The back legs look longer. That's not a horse, but it looks like a horse. So then they go, let's call la maestra. La maestra. Felicitas Ledesma is who they call la maestra, the teacher. They call her that because she was the first person in that community to go off to college, to the university, and return, and she became a school teacher there. And so they go, let's call la maestra. So they go. They get la maestra. She comes back. Felicitas comes back. She looks inside the hole. She says, that's a prehistoric horse. And then they say, see, I told you. See, I told you. So she says, let me call my colleagues over at the university here in Guanajuato, and they'll have a look at this horse. Okay. She makes a phone call. They come in a VW bus, those school like 70s buses, VW bus. They all come out. They come out, the paleontologists, they come out and they look, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and they all look inside the hole and they go, yeah, that's a prehistoric horse. And the community goes, yeah. By then, the whole community is around this giant hole in the ground. They're like, yeah, we knew it was a horse. You see, I told you, horses come from right here. Charco de Pantoja, this is where the horses are from. They originate right here. They're not from Europe like they told us. They didn't come from Spain. They're from right here. We know our horses. In Charco de Pantoja, we know horses. That's where they're from. They're really proud of their horses. And so they say, wonderful, wonderful. And then all the professors who came from the university and were examining the horse, they said, well, okay. So then they take Felicitas aside, la maestra, and they kind of consult with her. The community's waiting back there, and they're consulting. And finally, they come out and they tell the community, okay, so we're going to need some help to lift the horse out and put it in the back of our VW bus and haul it off to do testing on that. Okay, so who's ready to help? The community is like, what? Yeah, who's ready to help? You look like a big guy. You look like a couple. And then the community is like, ¿Cómo? Huh? And then they go, well, what's the problem? So then they consult. Felicitas, come here. So then la maestra goes over to the community. See, no, see, no. Okay. She comes back and she goes, they're not going to let you guys take the horse. So the 3, professors are there, and they look at the entire community, and then they go, Felicitas, come here. So she goes back. They come back, and they go, okay, here's the deal. We struck a deal with Felicitas, la maestra. Here's the deal. You help us take the horse, put it in our VW bus, and take it to the university. Give us about maybe, a year or so, do some testing on it. We will bring the horse back to the community. and we will put it in a glass case, and we'll put some signage on it, and it'll be here in the community permanently installed for all the community to know that this is their horse, and they can see it anytime they want, but we just need to take it for testing. We all look at each other. All right, so then they do. So there's a magazine called Earthwatch that used to come out quite a bit back then, and they had this beautiful picture from top view of the entire community lifting the horse out of the ground and putting it into the back of this VW bus. And then the bus took off that afternoon. And the community said, bye, caballito, we'll see you soon. And the community never saw the horse again. Never again. So then Don Miguel finishes telling me this story, and he looks at me and he goes, maybe you can help us find the horse. And I said, find a horse? He says, well, you found us. Find the horse. So I thought he was joking, and he goes, Dulce, does your motorcycle work? She said, yeah. He says, okay, after breakfast, take Tim on your motorcycle. Go talk to La Maestra. She's still here. She's still alive. Go talk to La Maestra. So there I was at La Maestra's now looking through her files of the horse. And what am I doing looking for this horse? This horse, that's not what I'm here for. Anyway, I board the plane that afternoon. I take off with La Maestra's notebook filled with horse research. She'd been trying to find it for years. And I have the horse Bible tucked under my arm, and I'm flying back. And I kept thinking about why Don Miguel might have told me that story. Why? What was the purpose for telling me that story? And it occurred to me, and at least this is the best thing I could come up with, is I think it was his way of telling me, if you take the stories from here, bring them back. And so with that, I want to start off, before I read an excerpt from the second book in this series, I invited my dear friend Ana Saldaña, who's a wonderful musician from LA, as Mike talked about there. And she's going to actually do a little offering for us, for you all, to honor the exchange of ideas, to honor the sacredness of our stories and our ideas and our presence as we exchanged for the entire week. So this is just an offering for that. So Ana?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, test. Check. Maybe I'm not loud enough. Hello. Check. Hi. Thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge the Nez Perce land that we're standing on. I really am grateful to be here. And in my indigenous language, Nahuatl, Tlasokamati means thank you. So, Tlasokamati.
I am standing on the banks of the North Canadian River, just outside of Okima, Oklahoma. the hometown of the folk music icon Woody Guthrie. We parked on the shoulder of Highway 56 to get here, scaled a low fence, and walked to the banks of this river I am now staring at. We make our way to the new bridge, a mass of concrete that stretches across the river in this quiet, unassuming part of the world. Beneath it, I see that the pylons are tagged with graffiti, symbols that I can't make out upon first glance, not until we get closer, and then I see the messages. Swastikas spray-painted, racist scribble. It's clear. History does not die. It never dies. Not here, not anywhere. History is only reincarnated. It is always temporarily dormant, but with the right condition, perhaps years or decades later, it returns as something else. History is always the descendant of history. Just as with humans, it is coded in the DNA of cities, in the small towns, trees, and even in the bridges. This is made clear to me under the Highway 56 bridge in the heart of Okfuskee County. On May 25th, 1911, Laura Nelson and her 14-year-old son, LD, were both lynched by a mob of white men right here on this very bridge that I am now standing under. Young LD was accused of purposefully killing the local deputy sheriff. Some who witnessed it claimed that the incident was an accident. Others swore that it was no accident at all. Despite the facts, what is known is that in the short days after, Laura and her son were dragged to this bridge and hanged by a mob. I am aware that the DNA of that incident still lives here. I am bogged down with an indescribable grief. I was brought here by my friends, the scholar Will Kaufman and the musician Joel Raphael. There's a small group of us, but I have to walk away and give myself space for a moment. I high-step through the tall grass, drudge carefully through the mud, careful not to slip into the river. I clutch a cattail for balance, and as I step to the pylons, wanting to get closer to the graffiti, I am never content with just being a viewer of things. I prefer direct interaction with the past. The closer I can get to the pylons, to the swastika, and to the hate, the closer I am to standing in the footprints of the human that sprayed it. Which is to say, the closer I am to touching the source of what brings a person to such hatred for what and who they don't know. Which is also to say, the closer I am to understanding what lies beneath my own human nature. If my search has any purpose at all, this is it. I am trying to quell my own fires, but they are not mine alone. They are fires stoked by the embers of generational traumas. Every time I search for someone or something, I know that I am searching for myself. I am diligent about this work. Up close, the paint is bright red, almost fresh. And when I reach the closest point, I hear a sound that was surely there all along, though it took me arriving at this place before I could hear it. Crickets, a chorus of them calling out, echoing across the river. It comes from all sides now. There must be billions of them on these banks. And then suddenly I hear them again, the birds. They are loud, as if alarming one another that danger is near. I am their danger. And then the hush of trees and the light breeze. The trees look old, at least 100 years old. It's possible they stood here as young saplings witnessing the bodies of Laura and LD swinging from the bridge. It's possible they are still whispering about it. Though this is the new bridge, there are still pieces of the original bridge left jutting out the river on the banks as a reminder. The crickets I am hearing in this moment are the descendants of the same crickets that sang out to Laura and LD on that terrible day. And the birds, too, who have been in these parts for generations, could very well be the descendants of the same birds that circled overhead the commotion of the angry mob as they placed a noose over the heads of Laura and LD. And the river, of course. Even though it runs and replenishes itself, there is still something in the circular nature of its own existence that carries the genes of its ancestral incarnation. History is always the descendant of history. And I have no doubt that all of these very alive organisms, these witnesses, have something to tell me if I listen. So I listen. I find myself holding back tears. What is this business, I think to myself, of holding back tears? I interrogate myself. That too is a conditioning, but I am here in this place to do the work, and that requires standing in the footprints and staring the past directly in the eye. So I allow myself to feel, to really feel, unapologetically feel, face it. These things have always hurt me. They have always felt deeply personal to me. I cry. I am sensitive. I've known this since day one. The men in my life have tried to cure me of this, but they didn't know it was my power. I didn't know, but now I know. They told me what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but time has taught me otherwise. What hasn't killed me has only made me softer, more malleable, fluid, like this river. It follows the gravity and nothing else, replenishing what it touches. Even my own father struggled with my sensitivity early on. Our wills were tested often. He could see I was made soft. He's since come around in his old age, but not without our challenges. Isn't this the plight of men and their children? Fatherhood? How to forget the pain of our past, but extract the light? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we must dissent from our own conditioning. It's no secret that Woody Guthrie's father, Charles Guthrie, was part of that mob that lynched Laura Nelson and her son LD. He was a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan and a known white supremacist. Before mother and son were dragged to the North Canadian River Bridge, they had spent some days in the local Okima jailhouse. This before the mob assembled. The lore is that the passerbys could hear Laura crying out from the jail cell, "Please don't kill my baby and my son, please." Woody was born a year later. He would grow up seeing this lynching on postcards in his small town, peddled as souvenirs. The inhumane treatment of people who were of different race or color left an imprint on his spirit. He went on his own search, traversed the country as a hobo, singing at Okie and Mexican labor camps, immersing himself wholly in the lives of the other. He would find reconciliation in music. Later on in life, once he knew exactly on which side of his father's beliefs he stood, he committed himself to writing songs that opposed everything that Charles Guthrie had once stood for. Songs that gave voice to the voiceless and names to the nameless. Deportee, Plane Wreck at Los Gatos is just one of hundreds of such songs. Standing in his father's footprints, he had become intimate with hate. Standing in the footprints of the other, he had become intimate with love. And if that wasn't enough to soften his heart and add fuel to his convictions, the hard lessons that he would gather from fatherhood were. February 9th, 1947. It's 1 year before the plane crash at Los Gatos happens. On this afternoon, Woody attends a rally for the United Electrical Workers at the Dodge plant in New Jersey. He doesn't plan to stay there long because it's his daughter Kathy Ann's 5th birthday. She's the gem of his eye, of course. The two are practically inseparable. He writes dozens of songs with her. He calls her, as a nickname, Little Miss Stack of Bones. He's written dozens of all these songs, these children's songs. Some of his songs even include her in the recordings. All he wants now is to go back home and celebrate his Little Miss Stack of Bones with cake and a party. When Woody returns home that evening, instead of finding a house bursting with children's laughter, he discovers it empty. There's been a fire. His wife Marjorie summons him to the hospital and he rushes over, and it's little Kathy Ann. She's been in an accident. Her dress caught fire by a spark that came from the radio. She's burned profusely, and on the day of her 5th birthday, little Kathy Ann is dead. Woody is inconsolable. He slips into a darkness. He doesn't speak or eat. His friends try getting him out of the house for some air. They take him for a walk one day on the beach. He throws himself onto the sand, and he kicks and he howls endlessly, and then the anger sets in. 1 year before the plane crash at Los Gatos happened, Woody gathers himself up and does what he's always done in these moments. He turns to words. But in this instant, little does he know just how prophetic what he's about to put down on paper will go on to become. On March 16th, 1947, a year before the plane crash, Woody writes a letter to his friend, John Lomax, and he's venting over what happened to his little daughter, Kathy Ann. He writes, "The spark was caused by a faulty, no-good wartime radio wire, which shows that cheap synthetic imitation products made for the greedy profits of manufacturers is still failing us in a million ways, in the ship holes, in the brake shoes, and in the airplanes that fall down from their upper places to fill our papers and our radio speakers with only some dim echo of the living eyes and faces that get marked out in their fall. He writes that 1 year before. Just 10 months, actually, after writing the words, it comes true. A Douglas DC-3 airplane deporting 28 Mexicans falls down from its upper place and fills our radio with speakers and only with a dim echo of living eyes and faces that got marked out in the fall. And then they're buried in a mass unmarked grave, and they remain anonymous for 70 years. It's clear to me now, that by the time the plane crash had occurred, Woody had already begun writing this song. The words were in his DNA. In his own way, the death of his most beloved daughter was the springboard and the rage and the fuel behind what would come later. He was now intimate with the dark spiral of loss, with the system and with the system responsible for it. And he had begun to search for the words. The plane crash at Los Gatos was just an invitation. When you experience loss at this magnitude, the new direction your heart takes will apply to everything it touches, to all the losses and all the heartbreaks. And wherever that fire occurs, it becomes your mission to extinguish it. Everything becomes a metaphor for addressing the original wound. When you listen to this song, through this filter, you realize it is a subject that is much greater than just a plane crash. Encoded within the lyrics is a man seeking dignity for people, inviting us to question how we make decisions and to consider who our decisions affect. And he himself is not exempt from this narrative. In the original handwritten words, Woody wrote, "Is this my best way I can grow my big orchards? Is this my best way I can grow my good fruit?" Throughout the song, he uses the first person I. Only later he changes it to the collective we. He is aware that his personal history cannot be ignored. He intuits the interconnectedness of both. The death of his beloved daughter is tied to the plane crash and to his father and to himself. The same human plague has affected them all. Invisibility. As a father, I can no longer listen to Deportee, Plane Wreck at Los Gatos, and not hear it as a love letter to his children, to all of our children.
The crops are all in and the peaches are rotting. The oranges are packed in their creosote dumps. They're flying back to the Mexican border to take all their money to wait back again. So goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita. Adiós mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportees. We died in your hills, we died in your deserts. We died in your valleys, we died in your plains. We died neath your trees, we died neath your bushes. Both sides of the river, we died just the same. So goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita. Adiós mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportees. our big orchards. Is this the best way we can grow our good fruit? To die like the dry leaves and rot on my topsoil, to be known and no name except deportee. So goodbye, Rama Juan, goodbye. Rosalita, adiós mis amigos, Jesús y María. You won't have a name when you ride the big airplane, and all they will call you will be deportee.
Tlasokamati. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all, Fishtrap. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's a good way to start. That's a good way to start everything. Hope you had a wonderful time and a good first day at Summer Fishtrap. Remember that Sharma and Tim and Anna will be in there. Go meet them, say hi, ask them questions, buy a book, get it signed. I do have to say something. I don't know how this happened. We worked so hard on this program. I was reading, oh, who's reading tomorrow? That's not right. So grab your marker or pen or something, and tomorrow night we're featuring readings from Janae Brownwood, Cameron Scott, and Beth Piato. Okay? We'll stick Stubblefield in there somewhere else during the week. So before we go, I just want to say one more time, when you get up in the morning and you see the sun, what are you going to say? That's nice. And when you look at the pretty trees out here, what are you going to say? That's nice. And when you see your cup of coffee or a cup of tea, what are you going to say? Yeah, that's mine. So you have a word, and Beth is going to be doing a test in the morning. So we'll see you all then, and thank you for being here. Talk to you tomorrow.